The universal counterterrorism instruments take a so-called sectoral approach. Each treaty deals with offenses against certain interests, such as the safety of international civil aviation or international maritime navigation, against certain persons like diplomats or hostages, or committed with certain weapons, such as explosives or nuclear weapons. The instruments do not provide a universally agreed-upon general comprehensive definition of terrorism or acts of terrorism. For the purposes of their domestic counterterrorism legislation, however, many states see the need to provide in their law a definition of terrorism or acts of terrorism. They also perceive the need to create additional offenses which are not required by the international instruments, or which, though required by a Security Council resolution, are not defined in the universal counterterrorism instruments. For example, one such offense is incitement to terrorism that can be broadly interpreted. Vaguely defined terms like national security or security of the state lack universally accepted objective definitions in international law and governance, making them highly susceptible to broad interpretation and potential misuse. This ambiguity allows states to frame security concerns in ways that justify expansive powers, often at the expense of civil liberties, political opposition, and human rights. In counterterrorism operations, such vague terminology can be leveraged to suppress dissent, target marginalized communities, or justify excessive surveillance and force, all under the pretext of national security imperatives. Without clear legal parameters, these terms provide states with a near-limitless mandate to act, often without meaningful oversight, leading to concerns about their use as tools for political or authoritarian control rather than genuine security needs. In recent years, the Human Rights Committee, the Special Rapporteur on Human Rights while Countering Terrorism, and the High Commissioner for Human Rights have frequently expressed the concern that the counterterrorism legislation of states does not meet the requirements of accessibility and foreseeability. In reviewing counterterrorism legislation of member states, they have, for instance, expressed the following criticism: lack of precision in the particularly broad definitions of terrorism and terrorist activity. The state party should adopt a narrower definition of crimes of terrorism, limited to offenses that can justifiably be equated with terrorism and its serious consequences. The vaguely defined crime of collaboration with terrorist organizations runs the risk of being extended to include behavior that does not relate to any kind of violent activity. The vagueness of certain provisions on terrorist crimes in the Penal Code carries with it the risk of a slippery slope, that is, the gradual broadening of the notion of terrorism to acts that do not amount to, and do not have sufficient connection to, acts of serious violence against members of the general population. The committee notes with concern that the offense of encouragement of terrorism has been defined in broad and vague terms.